this time that we're in, I say we have a short window to actually make some things happen. And I'm just talking about, gathering up power and making sure that, we put ourselves in a position to not be at the mercy or to have a knee on our neck again. But there's something else going on spiritually. A lot of people are intimating there's something spiritual going on. Sitting in your seat, as a pastor of a church, how do you see it where we are in this particular time in history?
Well, I think COVID-19 has reminded all of us of how vulnerable we are, rich and poor, black and white, liberal, conservative. And I think coming out of COVID-19, unlike 9/11, 9/11 was tough, but it wasn't the kind of tough that COVID-19 is. And that we have to protect each other. That's why we wear the masks, et cetera. And I think if we can flesh that out into our lifestyles, then we can live more humbly because we're fragile, and we can live more horizontally because we have each other's backs. On the racial side, though, Karen, I'm seeing a few things. First of all, what I came to conclude just this morning is that these young people that have insisted on the theme Black Lives Matter have insisted on promoting the reality of systemic racism, that have insisted on holding police accountable. I think what they've done is give a lot of so-called successful Negroes, middle-class blacks, and others the right to cry. The more successful you are as a black person in this country, the more stress you're under to perform right, not make mistakes, use proper grammar, have your shoes shine. And that stress, I believe, is a pent-up emotion. And now that white people are asking their black friends, are we all right? Are you okay? I think it's giving black people permission to cry and to vent and to have the courage to finally look white folks in the eye and say, you know what, every day, you have that black Sambo on your desk and it's offensive, and I've never told you that because I didn't think it mattered. We have had to suck up for years, and the higher you go, the more sucking you have to do. Because white people who see successful black people, we become honorary white people. And they get so comfortable around, and that might have been what happened with Lecrae, by the way. But, successful black people, from a psychological perspective, are viewed as being different by white people. And when we're on those boards and in those meetings and we're signing those checks at the bank, they treat us like we're white. We're like honorary white people, yet we're in pain, we're offended. They say things that aren't funny, but we smile anyhow because we've learned to choose our battles. And every black child, we talk about telling our children how to behave around police. Every black child is raised to learn how to behave around white systems. We're told you got to get up earlier, you have to stay at work later, you can't make mistakes. We are pressed by our culture to fit within their culture. And what I'm seeing now is an exhaling of many black people, and it won't last long, but I think we have to turn it into some concrete benefits for our community.
I am glad you brought that up. Yesterday we were talking with Drew, and Drew shared a story of a police encounter that he had not talked about. Last week we had Carla Hall on, who talked about a memory that she has suppressed for 20 years, and now it's coming up. Yesterday I talked to a buddy of mine who, after listening to Drew, shared with me the time that the police busted into his house in the middle of the night, handcuffed him in his own home because he shared the name of somebody that they were looking for. They had the wrong person with the exact same name. Disrupted his, to the point that he was scared to be in his own house alone for fear that if it ever happened again, he could die and nobody would know what happened. It'd be their word. And this is a law-abiding, mild-mannered, beautiful, wonderful soul who had his whole entire life upended because they came in with machine guns, like automatic weapons, after a criminal that was not him in his home that he paid for with his tax money. So there are stories now that people suppressed, and I want to leave this space open because it's cathartic to talk about. Because, he couldn't share it with anybody because he didn't want to alert his family, didn't want them to be worried about him living in this neighborhood. You know what I'm saying? So there are so many of those stories out there that people, and I'm sure you have one, Dr. Soares, with your good degree self.
Those experiences don't show up in the data at all. They don't show up in the data. And
Right.
that's why data is not king of this conversation, because you have these nuts to come out and say, well, this many black people were abused by police versus that many white people. And I'm saying the data does not translate into the reality of black life in America. It is stressful. I'm on one board. I'm the only black person. I'm on another board, and there are two of us. And I'm telling you that it's stressful, because when you're in that room, you represent the whole race. You don't want to mess up, because if you mess up, you're the last black person they'll ever appoint to anything. I was Secretary of State. I was the only black person in the world that the governor of New Jersey spoke to every day. There's a lot of stress.
Wow.
And there's a lot of frustration. And you have to suck certain things up, choose your battles wisely, because if we stopped every time we were offended or mistreated in a white context, that's all we would do. I'm feeling now that Black America is having a catharsis of sorts, but we can't cathart forever. We've got to be strategic, and that's what you and I talk about off the air all the time. We've got to have strategies after we shed our tears.